Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hi, this is Tracy, and this is the final episode of the Eating at a Meeting podcast for 2022. Holy moly, it's been a great year. I have produced 67 episodes of this show and chatted with over 80 people who are in food and beverage. And it's been an amazing year. I've learned so much. I've met fantastic people. I've seen unbelievable food and beverage experiences. And for this last show, I want to bring to you not a show that I did live, but one that I did while I was touring the Javits Convention Center in New York City back in October. I reached out to them because I knew they had a farm on top of their roof. And boy, do they have a farm. I got to spend about 2 hours with the general manager of Culivated, who is Dimitrios Manazorans, as well as his director of sales and marketing, Erica Papagong, and his executive chef, Niko Marinos. I also got to spend some time with their farm manager, Orion Ashmore. And I'm going to give you some details on the farm, but then I'm going to let you listen to my interviews with Chef Niko and then Orion, the farmer. And I've got specific questions for both of them, and so you'll hear those throughout there. But let me know what you think, and let me know if you've been to the Javits Center, because I just think this is really kind of amazing. All right, so some information. So it was in 2021 that Brooklyn Grange actually started planting seeds at the farm at the Javits Center. And the farm is actually a rooftop farm and orchard atop of the expansion of the convention center in downtown Manhattan. And it is an acre in size. And it's mind-blowing. It really is. And you have to go online to my website and look at the pictures of it because it really is cool. And I will also give you a link to the website for the farm as well. It was a 3-year consulting and design project. So they started well in advance of it opening up, and it has a 3,500 square foot climate controlled greenhouse and a 10,000 square foot rooftop orchard and food forest that has 38 apple and pear trees on it. You got that right. They are growing apples and they are growing pears on top of a convention center in downtown New York. Adjacent to the farm is a massive mobile garden with over 100 movable planters full of native perennials. And one of the things I found interesting about that is that when they were planting it, they've got shadows from when the sun moves, and then there's shadows from the building. So they actually have to look at how they're planting and what they're planting depending on the time of year for where the shade will be, and during specific times of the day. So I thought that was really interesting. And the farm is managed with a specific contract through the Javits catering program, which is called Culivated. And Culivated is part of the Levy restaurant group, Levy Convention Center group. So it is specifically for New York Center, the Javits Center. And what I thought was really cool too is that their goal is to produce 40,000 pounds of food in that farm. That's mind-blowing. And I think Erica told me while we were on the tour that they had already exceeded the 40,000 pounds for the year, which is mind-blowing. But you'll listen to my interview with farmer Orion and then Chef Niko about that too. And it's really, not only are they growing the food for convention center use. They're using it in the employee cafeteria. They're making for anything that's excess and not being able to use by the convention center and Cultivated. It's actually being donated to a local company called Rethink Foods, which then distributes the food throughout the city as well. So I want you to check that out, and it's really, really cool. But the new expansion of the Javits Center was really very innovative, very purposeful, with lots of intention. And I think the team that they have there is fantastic. Another cool thing is that they sent me home with a jar of honey, because they also have honeybees on top of the roof. So they are also cultivating their own honey from that and using that in drinks and different menu items and giving away jars of it. So anyways, here is the first interview that you will hear is my interview with Orion Ashmore. He is the manager of the Javits Center for Brooklyn Grange. And then you will hear from Executive Chef Niko Marinos with Culivated at the Javits Center. I hope you enjoy it and let me know what you think. Thanks. So tell us who you are and what you're growing.
My name's Orion Ashmore. I manage the farm here at the Javits Center. So we're on 1 acre, and it's a combination of perennial culinary herbs to flowers to annual vegetables. And then on the other side of the roof, we have 38 fruit trees, a bunch of berry bushes, and some like agroforestry type projects there.
How much do you produce on this 1 acre farm at the Javits Center?
So we're our goal is up to 40,000 pounds of annual veg on the farm. And some of the perennial systems, like we have raspberries and strawberries here, as well as gooseberries and whatnot. Those are going to take a little longer to establish, but that'll be a huge additional year as plants mature.
What is the square footage of the farm at the Javits Center?
This space here on this side of the roof, greenhouse included, is 1 acre.
What are you growing in the greenhouse?
This is a hydroponic system that you're seeing back here. This allows us to continue producing into winter year-round, allows us to stay engaged with Culivated and figure out, what sort of stuff we can continue to grow that can end up on the plates of event goers. And then we have some small microgreens production. We're actually reorienting things so that we can also do greenhouse tomatoes next year, vertically trellised and climate controlled, and just better yields, better fruit than what we would be able to do out in the field.
What's the growing season of the farm?
We've planted to try to harvest all the way through beginning of January. Okay. And then if the weather warms up a little sooner than, since it's kind of been doing that each year, we'll start again up in March, being able to do some small harvests and then getting seedlings started in the greenhouse to transplant out, and starts back up. So 2.5, 3 months maybe of downtime.
To whom do you sell vegetables and fruits? Is it just the Javits Center, or does it go elsewhere as well?
All of the food that we produce goes to Javits' either in-house caterers, which is Culivated, who you all are talking to, and that ends up on the menus of certain events. There's also an employee cafeteria, Jake's, where a lot of that produce ends up as well. And if there's some things that just didn't end up making its way into the chef's hands, we have a donation partner, Rethink Foods, here in New York City, that come and actually we just did a donation right now. They come and they take any excess produce that we have.
How do you work with the Javits Center to decide what to grow? Do you work specifically with the chef on their seasonal menus?
No, it's just sort of as a case-by-case basis, kind of in between events, circumstances where we're needing to keep things moving and harvesting. Sometimes there's a slow point in events, and it's a chance to just get some produce out to the community. But largely, the majority of our focus is high production for the Javits Center and the purpose, the things they do there.
How do you work with the Javits Center to decide what to grow? Do you work specifically with the chef on their seasonal menus? Yeah,
so we have built in a bit of flexibility with our crop plan. Certain things are more or less easy to pivot around. mid-season tomatoes, like doing a new variety, not really possible. But stuff like lettuce, stuff like radish, stuff like certain herbs, there's ways in which if the chefs give us enough heads up, we're able to start to grow according to their needs and the needs of the clientele.
What are you doing with the ginger that's growing in the greenhouse, and what else are you growing? Can you point out what everything is here in the greenhouse?
We have no clue what we're doing with the ginger yet. This is our first year trialing it.
Trying ginger?
Yeah.
Which are those big stalks over there? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if anyone ever gets a chance, young ginger is just so floral and pungent, but not like spicy. It's great. So what you're seeing on the right are successions of basil. We have Genovese and Thai basil. And then the rafts or the sections down below have tatsoi and lettuce, leafy greens that usually do very well in a hydroponic system. And then this front raceway has edible flowers, some herbs, things that we can continue to grow because we're climate controlled here that would be dying out in the field. And that'll allow us to, provide garnishings for the chefs to put on plates and stuff like that.
You are a farmer. What brought you to the Javits Center to grow food on top of a building? It's much different than what a quote unquote standard farmer would be doing.
Yeah, to continue to farm in the city. I think, understanding that the majority of the world is fed by farmers, but also realizing just how disconnected people are from their food in the city. It felt like one of the best spots you could, put in front of people's attention, the things that the stewardship that's going on upstate and other places around the world. So yeah, for me, it was a great opportunity to continue to build my skills, start up basically a farm from scratch in this case, along with Javits and Culivated. And then, have people see, the hard work and just the abundance that's possible, in both a small space, but honestly, any environment that you're willing to put some will behind.
How did the Brooklyn Grange and the Javits Center partnership start?
Javits, I'm not firm on the dates. I believe Javits in 2017 put out an RFP. They were expanding on this building and were wanting to add on to the other green roof that they already have. And they thought, well, instead of just doing sedum, can we, have edible production? And so from the drawings up, they started to consider the farm on the roof of this expansion. And in the RFP, Brooklyn Grange reached out and was like, we've been doing this for, at this point, like half a decade or more. We think we'd be good at it. And they liked what we were doing and hired us. So.
The vegetable beds outside look like they're raised. Can you tell us about how they're fabricated? Are they actually raised beds, or how does that work?
No, so we haven't, for the most part, we haven't raised any of our beds. We're fortunate enough to be on average, 14 inches of soil, which is honestly pretty unusual for a lot of rooftop farms, just because of the weight loads that are required by the ceiling underneath. So we've just been designating permanent beds with a marker and string system, so things don't shift over time. It also allows us to keep straight rows, which always just tends to look nice and is more efficient that way. And we just amend annually with compost. If the crop needs it, a little bit of additional organic fertilizer. And honestly, that's about it.
Do you have any fun facts you can share about the farm?
Interplanted sweet corn within our winter squash, our melons, and our zucchinis. And they didn't take up any more space. They didn't harm the plants around them. And we got a really, really great corn yield. And we hadn't been able to do it on any of the other farms that Brooklyn Grange operates and owns. So it was a cool first crop for the company, and it went really, really well. So,
thank you so much for your time, Orion. Can you share how someone can get in touch with you and Brooklyn Grange?
Brooklyn Grange is the company I work for, and their website is brooklyngrangefarm.com. Grange, like the French word, grange, Grange. My name is Orion, and my email is just Orion@brooklyngrangefarm.com. So, yeah, reach out.
My next interview is with Chef Niko Marinos, who works with Culivated at the Javits Center. And we sat down, and I didn't ask who he was or anything for the podcast. We just started chatting. And I have to tell you that he had brought in 2 different plates of apples. And when I was talking to Orion out on the farm, on the rooftop, I saw Chef rolling some crates of apples behind Orion and into the kitchen. And when he stopped by just to be introduced and say hello, and I'm like, hey, did you get the fact that I was gluten-free? And he's like, nope. So our opening interview or conversation here is about that happening. So but let me describe it. It is 2 different plates, and one is a sliced apple that has been rolled in cinnamon and sugar. And then the other plate is some apple empanadas, and he really gets into talking about these. So enjoy this interview, and again, let me know what you think. Okay, so Chef, tell us about the food that you've placed in front of me. What is this? And is this what I saw you rolling by me when I was standing outside on the rooftop?
Here at Javits, we have an apple orchard, right? So right now, the Liberty apples have been harvested. So whenever we get a chance to use the items, we try to reinvent and invent some new items. So one of our signature items here at Culivated, here at the Javits Center, is our apple ham pies, apple empanadas. They're encased in some puff pastry with the local apples that we grow, some cinnamon sugar. We also serve with icing, but I figured this is more of a fall feel right now. And since we have a gluten-free attendee here with us today, I want you to taste the apple itself, right? And just hinted with a little bit of cinnamon and sugar, just so you get that. It's almost not as sour, or it's not as a Granny Smith, but it's almost between a golden and a Granny, and it's really awesome. And they call it Liberty. I mean, what a better name for a New York apple grown in Manhattan, right, in the city, than that. So again, with our honey that we also have here, we try to incorporate as much as we can with the farm and what we do to get that extra, I guess, that extra salt and pepper, that extra piece of love on those specialty items so when people come here, they feel special, right? And that's what we're about, creating another memory. So that's what we do here at Javits Center.
Mm-hmm. Chef, how long have you been at the Javits Center?
I've been here for about 6 months now.
Oh,
I've been here from, started in May.
Mm-hmm.
Came from Charlotte, right?
Okay.
But,
Go North Carolina.
I'm born and raised New York kid, so I wanted to come back home. So it's been a nice ride, jumped on the train that was running here in Javits, and haven't stopped, haven't looked back. So I'm really excited about what the future holds.
As a convention center chef, your job entails what? You make food? What else do you do?
This position is not for everybody. You need to have a eclectic background. I come from hotel background, stadiums and arena background, being the exec sous chef at Citi Field, being the executive chef at Prudential Center for 2 seasons for the Devils, being the executive chef for the Charlotte Hornets for 3 years, working multiple Levy Restaurant Compass events for thousands of people, right? You get to understand high volume, right? But it's not just about high volume, it's about serving that restaurant style food in a high volume setting. And that's what separates us from restaurant chefs, I believe. They're looking at the 150 to 300 person a night kind of service. We're looking at the anywhere from 1,500 to, more recently with Comic-Con, 54,000 person service, whether it be retail oriented or event space based. We do it all. Like, I've had experiences in the past where I've done plates for 10,000.
Wow.
So it's kind of one of those things that you can't learn that from a textbook. You can't learn that from watching a culinary show. You need to experience it. You need to live it, and you have to learn from it, and the good and the bad. So I feel we're in a good spot.
So you've got this farm upstairs on your rooftop. How, and I'm assuming, and I know / assume that it's seasonal with what you're growing throughout the season, and what Orion said, it's probably from March until January that you're growing. So how do you help event planners be more sustainable with their menu planning based on the fact that you've got this farm right upstairs that you have full access to?
Well, being a chef, you always, it's in your blood to use fresh ingredients, right? You always want to, before having a farm here, it was all about local, right? It was all about local farms. So, I mean, we can't get more local than going upstairs two floors and picking it from the farm. But at the end of the day, we always use seasonality as the key, right? And whatever we harvest, we try to implement between using herbs and fruits and for infused waters to apples for hand pies, right? Like we try to make that fit where it makes sense, right? And kind of pass that freshness and that localness and that story on to the guests when they come here.
Chef, do you work with the farmer to decide what to grow for the catering menus? I mean, the food is right there for your taking, but do they just grow what they want to grow, or do you work with them on that?
We have a chef's walk every week with the farmers, and we go around what's coming up, what we're going to harvest. But when we first started it, we were like, had that dialogue back and forth of, how can we make it better? Like, okay, they're growing this, but it's not on our menu. So we kind of looked at what's on our menu and what do we always sell in bulk. And one of those items where we do a nice romaine Caesar salad, right? So instead of using romaine hearts or the regular romaine, we wanted to cultivate it and make it heightened and elevated. And we used a nicer romaine, a baby gem. So they started growing it, and we started getting baby gem. And that's just one of many examples in regards to we've asked them and they've done it. Like another one would be tomatoes. They started growing plum tomatoes and regular beefsteaks. And we're like, you know what? We go through more of grapes and baby cherry heirlooms. And then they started implementing that. And now we use those in our salads and our caprese salads and our hors d'oeuvres and in our everyday salad bars. So this summer, growing up in Long Island, my dad being a Greek immigrant, we had a garden in the back. And one summer he tried to grow corn. And I used to make fun of him because the corn came out like, it looked like, special corn. It wasn't all there, it was half. And so they grew it up here. And I kind of spoke to Orion. I was like, I've seen people have issues with growing corn. And he's like, well, we'll give it a shot. It's our first time. And every corn was perfect. It was flavorful. It had that right color, and it was just awesome. And we used it as much as we could in our applications. But that was the one surprise where I was like, wow, we did corn up here, which you don't really think of corn in the middle of Manhattan, on a rooftop and being not just grown, but grown perfectly. So that's kudos to them because, again, we're only as good as our team, right? And we just want to point out we have an amazing farm team here. Like the team there does an incredible job, and they've been very helpful with all our requests and just working together. It's been a great partnership. Well, it's all about production, right? We want to limit as much waste as possible. That's number one. But we also use the stuff up the right way. And we talk with the farmers, and we have a great team here at Javits that sustainability and eco-friendly. That's been a big talking point, right? And I think that's where we're headed. And people that, people look for that. Now with the global change and the climate and it becoming more of a forefront issue, it's a nice talking piece to be able to have, and also not just have, but also work and work at it. And we compost in the kitchen, we separate, right? It's a teaching. It's about changing the culture because you're working with a lot of individuals who are set in their ways where, if you just I call it constant gentle pressure. You just keep talking about it. You have, you keep reminding them. You point out the mistakes, you point out the why too, right? Like some people want to know why we're doing this. And when we tell them, hey, if our scraps that we save, the compost, get composted, then they get in the soil and it creates a better environment to grow more stuff, right? So I think just education, the staff, and just working together with the farmers and watching how we produce and limiting our waste is is key. And also whatever we don't have left over, we donate, right? So it's a constant cycle of being used, and try to limit that footprint of garbage and plastic and whatnot.
All right, Chef Niko, how would you like to work better with event planners? Is there something that you could do better or they could do better to make that relationship more symbiotic?
It's, people talk about sustainability and talk about eco-friendly, but, that's a hard thing to do, get everybody doing it, right? So get everybody together on the same page. But understand that, we can only do so much as in the kitchen, right? Like we can only do so much in regards to trying to get that 100%. It's a difficult, but we strive for it. So just giving us that information, what they're looking for. We try to exceed expectations whenever we can, right? But knowing that it's a work in progress, and it's something that we're all striving for, we all want. And that we have the policies in place, and we have the procedures in place to make it happen. So just, bear with us and give us that information and what they truly want from us, and we could deliver.
You worked on the fly today because you said, hey, I'm going to make you some apple empanadas. And I'm like, well, did it get communicated that I'm gluten-free? And you're like, no, but let me do this for you. And you did that on the fly, and I love that. But what about dietary restrictions?
So, as any chef knows, if you were a chef 20 years ago to now, gluten has been in the forefront, right? Celiac disease. But now, as I guess I call it the Food Network effect, I call it the cooking show effect. People have become more educated about food and what goes into food. And now people have become more educated what goes in their bodies, right? And, we got the dairy freeze. We have the different types of milk. You go back 10 years, almond milk, oat milks, all these different milks, they weren't there, right? Like, so it's something that as a chef, you get to work with these ingredients. Like now we're developing recipes with oat milk, with almond milk. Actually was just with my sales team yesterday going through a huge conference that we're about to have and telling them what has onions, what has garlic, just so where people are aware, the nut allergy, sometimes, it may not be a nut directly in an item, but it may come from a nut facility. So you need to have those advisory out there. But we're really open to that. That's something that we're getting a lot of feedback from our suppliers, from our people that want to come here about dietary restrictions. And as a chef, we just have to kind of make it happen as we do, right? Like that's in our nature. We hate to say no. So whatever, at the end of the day, we're in a hospitality business. We're here to provide smiles on faces and make memorable situations. So I'm sure when you leave us today, the one thing you'll remember, take home, is the fact that
100%,
right?
That is delicious. Yes.
So whenever, that's the number one goal. An apple's an apple, right? Mm-hmm. But like an apple grown from outside and with a little bit of love on it goes a long way. So I think as a chef, you just roll with it, make it happen. And if somebody doesn't want butter and all this stuff on it, they want it steamed. At the end of the day, we're here to make the customer happy. So,
Chef, how are you? There's so much going on with the supply chain right now. How are you dealing with supply chain issues of getting food, ordering food, vendors telling you they don't have it? How are you managing those issues while planning your menu?
Well, COVID did a lot for that business, for supply chain. Things that we could have gotten on a regular, on a whim, no issues, are now out of stock or won't be in for another 60 days or whatnot. But again, going back to the question before, we make it happen, right? If we don't have this, I have this. My job as a chef is if I can't get something, I'll give you 3 other options that you could choose from to make you happy, to make sure that event goes off smoothly, right? We all have issues in life, right? Like, and this is just one of them. Like, if I can get chicken breast, which certain size or certain style, I'll give you other types of poultry I can get, for example. But at the end of the day, you roll with it. it's more headaches for my purchaser than me. But at the end of the day, we find that happy medium, working together, giving clients different options to choose from, and then working together with all parties, we get that end result that we want.
Chef, you just talked about the issues that you have with supply chains and your menus. Now let's talk about the cost of food. We see on the news that the cost of food is going up. How are you and Culivated managing that cost and with your menus? And are you passing that on to event planners? Are you eating any of that? Can you talk about how the cost of food is impacting your menu planning?
So I'll give you a perfect example. We do hundreds, if not thousands, of box lunches every now and then. We'll make sandwiches for different events, and we'll get turkey in. Sometimes I get already sliced or whole turkey, and that's been astronomically right now, like to the point where quadruple, 5-6 times the price of turkey.
Wow.
So sometimes you just got to make it happen. And then that's those battles I leave for the sales team to fight, for, the client facing, our team members there. But as a chef, the one good thing about here is, we do have that option, right? Hey, turkey's really high price, what about a roast beef, a ham, or just a cheese sandwich, or like a caprese, something, you always give that alternative. But I think it's the number one thing is to be truthful with your customer, right? And your partners, and just tell them this is the reality of it. It's not something we all prefer, and it's not something we want, but it's the reality of where we are right now in this world, 2022, post-COVID, that these things happen, right? So just like it would in past, where let's say a salmonella breakout in romaine or scallions, where you can't use that, or the price goes up, or something happened with poultry or pork, prices go up. It's the same effect. It's also near the holiday time now. Mm-hmm. So now you'll see that spike in meats and certain fruits and vegetables that are used for holiday time. So, supply and demand. Mm-hmm. And being that we're such a large unit and we buy in bulk, so that kind of helps a lot. So.
Chef, question I ask everybody that I have on my podcast is this: what does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience mean to you?
Wow, it's loaded, huh? That's a good one. At the end of the day, we want everybody to leave here happy, right? Safe, nobody have any allergic reactions to any type of thing. But to me, it's all about doing it the right way, all the way through. Like from buying the product the right way, the correct product, to giving that right service, the disposable silverware, to the, compostable items that we serve, pass hors d'oeuvres on, or whatever vessels we put food on. And at the end of the day, using local and seasonal ingredients that just help enhance the experience, right? So that's what we try to do here, and that's something that chefs always think about, is like being seasonal, being local, using what's, I guess, not endangered, right? Like all those things are factors. But at the end of the day, we're making sure that we kick off a nice event, doing it the right way, and helping the environment at the same time. So leaving as minimal footprint as possible.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you've had a fantastic, thriving 2022. And I appreciate you listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, and that you've learned something not only from this episode, but from the 66 other episodes that have published this year. I would love to hear from you who you want me to interview, what you want to learn. Send me an email at tracy@thrivemeetings.com. I'm here to help educate us all on safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage. I wish you the happiest of holidays and a thriving 2023. Thanks. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert.
Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.